everyone, and welcome to Hanwell Zoo. This is the second in a few homeschooling sessions that we'll be doing. So if you missed last week's one, that's on our page and you can view that at your leisure. Today we are in, as you can see, with our ring-tailed lemurs, and we're talking about nutrition. So if you've got a question about the lemurs' diet or the lemurs, pop them in the comments below and we'll try and answer as many as possible. It's a bit windy today, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me. If you have trouble, if you have trouble hearing anything or you missed anything, you can ask again in the comments and I'll reply to them all this evening. So, part of my job here is to help look after the animals, and as well as providing them a really nice space in which to live, and plenty of fresh, clean water, and lots of exercise, as well as really good medical care. One of the most important things to keep our animals really healthy is their diet, and it's the same with us too. We have to really pay attention to our nutrition and what we're eating to make sure it's really healthy for us. And lots of different foods do lots of different things, so it's important to have a nice varied diet. So with the lemurs are an omnivore, and an omnivore is a kind of animal that eats lots of different things. And the first thing we feed our lemurs, probably one of the most important things that we feed our lemurs, are these biscuits. And these biscuits are especially made just for lemurs, and they're called leaf eater biscuits. And that's because in the wild, in Madagascar, where our lemurs are from, a big part of their diet is eating leaves. So we provide them this. Isn't that nice? We provide them this leaf eater pellet, and it has all the nutritional qualities inside it to keep them nice and healthy. But as I mentioned, because they predominantly eat leaves in the wild, they usually spend about 50% of their waking time eating and foraging. So in the zoo, we can give them all the food they need that they don't have to go look for, they don't have to compete with our other animals for, they don't have to worry about famines or droughts, they don't have to worry about seasonalities, and they also don't have to worry about being preyed upon by any predators. So one thing that we have to do in the zoo is make sure that they don't just eat all their food really quickly and spend the rest of the day bored. So we do a few things for that. One thing that we do is we spread their food around throughout the day. We hide it, or we put it in enrichment devices, which means we might put it in something that makes them think that they have to take some time to open it up and find their food. And we also give them a really good range of food, a good variety of food, to keep things interesting, but also to ensure that they have a really healthy diet. So as I mentioned, the most important thing is their lemur biscuit, which has all of the vitamins and minerals that they need to stay nice and healthy. The next thing we like to give them are lots of different kinds of carbohydrates. And just like humans, carbohydrates are really important. So complex carbohydrates are useful for long spells of energy that we can spend throughout the day. And then carbohydrates like fibers are really healthy for a good digestive system. And carbohydrates like sugars are nice and healthy for short bursts of energy. But like with most things, you have to have little and often rather than lots of one really good thing. So some of the carbohydrates we give our lemurs are root vegetables like parsnips and sweet potatoes and carrots. And they taste different, they smell different, they look different. So it's something really interesting for our lemurs to eat, but also really healthy. The other important thing for our lemurs to get is plenty of vitamins and minerals. So we provide that in an array of fruit and vegetables. We mainly give low sugar fruit. So sugar is really important for our lemurs to stay healthy and to have lots of energy to burn off during the day. But also, as we know, too much sugar is bad for us. It's bad for our teeth. And if we don't burn off that energy during the day, those sugars can then be stored in the body as fat. And fat's important, but too much fat can be a bit unhealthy. So we feed our lemurs to keep them nice and healthy with lots of vitamins and minerals. We feed them celery and things like pak choy and lots of corn, tomatoes, and lots of different beans. when we feed them lots of different beans and peas, it's not just for the really healthy minerals and vitamins in them, it's also quite good, high in protein. So it's important that they get lots of good protein, because protein helps us grow and it also helps us repair our cells. The next thing is fats. Fats are just as important as all of the other elements of food that we give our lemurs, and we give our lemurs fats in the shape of seeds. And seeds are something that they eat in the wild. They have nice healthy fats in them. We don't give them too much, as I said, because too much of one thing can be unhealthy for you. But fats are really, really important. Fats help protect our organs, they help protect our bones, and also for things like vitamin E, fats are essential to be able to carry that vitamin E all around our body. So there are our main 5 things: proteins, fibres, minerals, vitamins, carbohydrates and fats, 6 things, sorry, that we like to give our lemurs to make sure they're nice and healthy. Now, they have had their breakfast this morning already. That's probably why they're not so interested in their food. I'm just going to go over and show them that I've got a surprise in my pocket. Bear with me and hopefully they'll pop back out. While I'm away, I'll just be 1 minute. While I'm away, if you write any questions you've got down in the comments below. So, what I gave them was this, and this is a fruit called a tamarind. And a tamarind is one of their favourite fruits. That's why I hid it in my pocket, because I knew that they would eat it straight away. So I just gave one a tamarind now, and hopefully the others will come out once they realise tamarinds are on the go. Tamarinds are a wonderful thing to give our lemurs because they're full of energy, they're really, really healthy, they're quite high in sugar, so we don't give them that often because they're, where are we? Should we grab one? Because they're our lemur's favourite, they would usually just eat, if we just gave them tamarinds, or we gave them tamarinds a lot with all the other foods, they'll just eat the tamarinds. And as I mentioned, too much of one thing can be unhealthy, especially too much sugar. The other thing about tamarinds that's really, really useful is that these are the fruits that they would eat in the wild in Madagascar. They grow all over Madagascar, and wild lemurs would eat tamarinds naturally. So it's a really, really interesting thing for them to eat. They can exhibit natural behaviours. One of those behaviours that I'd like to show you is that if you get a really good look at their hands, if you don't get a good look at their hands, see if you can look on the internet a little later to have a look at lemur hands, because they're really similar to ours. They've got 4 fingers and a thumb just like us, so they're really dexterous at picking things up. But an interesting behaviour that lemurs do is they don't pluck fruit from trees like other primates, like humans might, or different kinds of monkeys or apes might pluck things from trees. Lemurs instead pull the branch towards them and eat the fruit straight from the tree. The main reason they do that is because a lot of the fruits they eat are really juicy and they don't want to get their hands dirty because they spend most of their time using their hands. So if I show, who's this? This is Fee. If I show Fee this tamarind, what you'll see is she won't take the tamarind from me, she'll grab my hand and pull the tamarind towards her mouth. See? Is that lovely? The only thing about the tamarind, so as I mentioned, the tamarind is something that they would eat native in the wild in Madagascar. Obviously, in the wild, they won't find a lot of these other foods, because what we have to do is we have to balance between having a really good healthy diet for our animals, but also foods that are available to us and affordable. So we try to match up as best as possible what foods they might have in the wild and emulate them here at the zoo. One thing we have to be careful of, lemurs will eat lots of berries and fruits in the wild, but berries and fruits that are available here in the UK are often produced for humans, and quite often the sugar is much, much higher than the kinds of fruits and berries that you would find in Madagascar. So we give more vegetables or lower fruits with lower sugar content than what we might find in a shop or what we might eat. and that helps them keep them nice and healthy. I've got a few more tamarins. They're having a really big treat because they're meeting you all today. So the last thing I say about the tamarind, not only are they quite expensive, so we can't give them that often, but as I mentioned, although they're really tasty and really healthy for the lemurs, sorry, because they're high in sugar, we don't give them that often. But also, these are commercially grown in Thailand, which is really, really far away. So their carbon footprint, is quite high. So we try to keep it as low as possible. We try to feed them as much locally sourced food as possible. A lot of their food we grow here at the zoo, and then the rest of the fruit and veg that we can't grow here at the zoo, especially all year round, we make sure it's either grown locally or at very least grown in Britain. And then the rest of their foods we try to get as close as possible to make sure that our animals' carbon footprints are nice and low to help the environment. So, if you've got any questions about the lemurs or their diet, pop them in the comments below and we'll try to answer as many as possible. I'll go over to Jim now and see if we've got any questions. Have we got any questions, Jim?
So we've got quite a few about how do they find their food in the wild?
Well, they normally live in very heavily wooded areas. They are semi-arboreal, so they're very dexterous up trees, so they can climb up trees, but also, unlike a lot of other primates similar to the ringtail lemurs, they can also spend quite a lot of their time on the ground. And food can be quite difficult to find, so they spend about 50% of their waking time foraging and looking for food. So they will find it normally, normally by a sense of smell, or they have these wonderful large eyes and they've got a really, really good sense of vision. So they'll find it by looking, especially. They'll be able to see when things are ripe or not, and that's really important for an animal to be able to tell when something's ready to eat or not. The other thing that lemurs are really, really good at is they have really good memory, so they'll be able to remember which trees and bushes will be fruiting at what time of year, so their family can move around accordingly and find the exact sort of foods that they are looking for.
So Charlotte was asking, are those long tails useful when they're finding food?
Hello Charlotte, that's a brilliant question. Are you going to put your tail up? No. Their tails, are their tails useful, or are they useful for finding food?
Are they useful?
They're very useful, really, really useful. One of the main uses they use them for is balance. So if you see them walking up and down this branch here, you'll see them swish them from side to side. And the main reason they're doing that is to help balance and keep their balance. So they use them as like a fifth limb to help keep their balance when they're walking through the trees. And they use them for a number of other reasons too. So the males will sometimes cover their tails in an oil that they get from a gland by their butt, which is really, really stinky. And they'll cover their tails with this stinky, stinky oil, and then they'll swish it in each other's faces, and that's their way of defending themselves from other males or males that they might be angry with. Another thing they use them for is they curl up with them, so they can be a sense of warmth for them, and also help protect them. The black and white stripes, where we don't know exactly why they have the black and white stripes. We know that they always have either 11, 13 or 15 stripes, and it always ends on a black one. And some of the different reasons why we think they might have that lovely black and white striped tail is that when they're walking on the floor in tall grass, they should be able to communicate with each other, they can see each other. The other reason is that black and white stripes can really be confusing to some pests like flies and mosquitoes. So for the same reason that zebras have black and white stripes, it can be confusing to blood-sucking pests. So they can use it to help protect them from being from mosquitoes drinking their blood. So they use their tails for lots and lots of different things.
Right, and they're obviously being fed as a group now, but how can you tell the individuals apart to make sure they're getting enough?
That can be tricky, but that's very much part of our job here at Hanwell Zoo, is to make sure not only that the animals are getting the right kinds of foods, but each animal is getting the right amount. So we will do observations every breakfast and every lunch and every dinner to ensure that each of the animals are getting their fair share. If they don't, then we'll do something to make sure that they do. So we can either separate them, we can put them in different bowls to make sure that no one's being too territorial or too greedy. And then we can tell them apart too, because we spend so much time with them. We can always tell them apart. So, who's this one? Hello. So this is Fee, this is Tia, and this is Varna. Fee, you can tell because she looks quite different. Her hands look really, really different from the other two. Tia has a much darker face, and Varna is much smaller in the body, so that's how we can tell them all apart. And their name, quite interesting, now I've mentioned their names. Fetia Varna, so Fetia and Varna. Fetia Varna is a Malagasy word, which is a language they speak in Madagascar, for love. And that's why we've called our lemurs Fetia and Varna.
Right, Anahita is asking, why do they like going up high on branches?
Oh, that's a good question, Anna. The main reason most animals like to go quite high up in trees and branches is for protection. So depending on what the animal is and depending on what animal might predate them, what animal might like to eat them, there's lots of protection up in trees. Not only are you high away from the floor where lots of predators might be, you've also got the camouflage or the hiding benefits of all the branches and the leaves. And that's the other thing about being high up in trees is that's where a lot of food can be found. So animals like lemurs will spend their time high in trees if there's predators on the ground. So in Madagascar, those predators might be an animal called a fossa, which is a dog-like animal which likes to eat lemurs, and also humans. So humans spend a lot of their time on the ground. So to protect themselves, lemurs can go up nice and high. As I mentioned, they eat lots of berries and seeds and fruits, which they can find high up in the trees. So there is a lot of protection and a lot of benefits and a lot of food high up in the trees. So that's a really, really useful tactic that not just lemurs, that lots and lots of animals use to help feed themselves and protect themselves and their family.
Right, but with that again, Charlotte's come back with another question. How high can they jump?
Oh, the lemurs can jump very, very high. From the floor, without running up, they can jump about 3 or 4 meters straight up into the air and grab onto a branch. They're really, really, really good jumpers. If I can show you once Fee's finished her tamarind, I'll give her another, I'll get her to stand up, and you can see just how long her legs are, just how well they fold them up, and their tendons, which are like the soft bony parts. If you touch the back of your ankle, there's a tendon there. It's like a elastic bony sort of material. So if we're going to stand up, you can see just how long Fee's legs are, and at the back they have really, really strong, tight tendons, and when they're stretched and contracted very, very quickly, it gives lemurs that incredible bounce. One benefit of doing that is that they can not only jump up really high up into a tree, but they can also protect themselves from a predator very, very quickly. One problem with having such an amazing skill is that it uses a lot of energy. So sugars, especially in the tamarind, are really useful for lemurs to have throughout the day if they need that burst of energy to be able to protect themselves by jumping high up in the tree. But that's a really good question because lemurs are excellent jumpers.
Right, Claire has asked, because they live in groups, do you know what a group of lemurs is called?
A group of lemurs, so for lots of different animals, when they live in a group, we have a term called collective nouns, and a collective noun is a subjective term, so you don't have to use it, but it's useful to use it when you know what animal you're talking about. And a group of lemurs, we tend to call it a troop. So we call them a troop of lemurs. We've got 3 in our troop at the moment, and ringtail lemurs love to live in a family group because that gives them lots of protection and it gives them lots of opportunity to find food, and there's lots of safety in numbers. So we've got a troop of 3 ringtail lemurs here at Hanwell Zoo. Super. I think that's the last question for today. If you've got any questions or we haven't answered your questions, if they're down in the comment section below, we'll make sure we'll answer those tonight to make sure everybody's question is answered. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everybody is staying safe and I hope you're enjoying learning from home. As I mentioned, not only do we have this series of resources to help and assist with homeschooling, in the other lockdowns we produce a number of videos and resources that you can access on our Facebook. So if you're interested, all of our videos, all of our resources, they all pertain to Key Stage 1 and 2, part of the curriculum. They're really, really useful. Hopefully they're fun and interesting. They also help teach you about some of the incredible and rare animals that we help here to look after here at Hanwell Zoo. And finally, I just want to, again, as the same with every time we talk, I just want to say thank you to everybody for your support and thank you for donating to our fundraiser and thank you for all the love that we're feeling. Until we see you next time, have a really, really lovely day and we hope to see you very, very soon. Stay safe. Bye-bye, everyone.